And when it comes to this analysis of the current state of of the requirements, or analysis of the current state of affairs with respect to whether it's a process, product, or any initiative, change initiative, we as BS have got a larger role to play, because we have got a fantastic exposure, we've got the right connections, we've got the right communication skills, and we have the right attitude to be able to look at it objectively. And that's why we play a great role as BAs to be able to understand this and analyze the current state of things in a better way than anybody else, any other roles. And then how would you do that? There are a set of different steps that the BA BOC really kind of prescribes or advises. So I would suggest we go through that. First one, obviously, is the evaluation of business needs. Very important. If you really want to understand or do anything, in terms of defining the existing state, you need to first look at the business needs, the opportunities, the kind of challenges that you have. And how would you do that? You can do it from top down. So look at it from as a typical functional decomposition, looking at it from a 30,000 feet overview. Or you can try and look at bottom up. So looking at it from the team perspective, from the product, looking at it from a product already working, from a process which is already there. Just look at it and then try and see what can be done to change it, right? So that is the bottom up aspect of it. Or talk to some stakeholders on the ground, talk to some employees working on the shop floor, staff working on some kind of machinery, equipment. Talk to them and then try and understand what is it that they're using, what kind of tasks that they use, the workflow, the breakdown scenarios, where can improvements be happening. So that is again bottom up, right? It's on the field. And then when you can also get it from the middle management, from senior management, from external drivers. All of these are different sources for you to be able to understand the business needs. Sometimes if you talk to, the reason why it is written as middle management is because the senior management, typically the CXOs, have got pretty ambitious aspects of what they want to do. So that's why it's really important that you need to separate the vision, the high level ambitious goals from what really gets done in terms of the business. So what you really do as a business or as a manufacturing unit would be completely different from what you really set out initially in that fantastic plan that you have. So it's always important, if you want to understand and analyze the business needs, you can't really go and talk to the senior guys or the senior management or the board of governance, because they might not have the real hand on the pulse of what's happening on the ground. So you need to really talk to the middle management, to the people who are on the shop floor, who are in the shops, who are on the factory floors, who are trying to do the work. They're the best people to be able to give you that picture of the needs point of view. And again, from the external drivers, what could be forcing us? That's what I was talking about, the using of techniques like the pestle tool, political factors that could affect us, the Brexit, for example, the aspects of elections, US elections, how that could potentially impact the whole world, which way to go, local elections, regional elections, local governments, regional governments, national governments, and perhaps even the kind of outlook towards the other countries' governments, how they would operate. And then the economic aspect of it, the economic impact of how these different factors, such as the microeconomic and the macroeconomic indices and dynamics, and for example, the current state of affairs pushing us into potential possible recession because there's no productivity or lower productivity, and all these things would affect in terms of how we take a decision about our potential business or our solution. And the same with the socioeconomic as well. So sociological aspects of how people are relating. For example, the way that people are not able to meet, so the use of online activities and families and friends being away from the extended families. All of these are really affecting some of the ways that people are thinking and how they could potentially take decisions. And technology, obviously, use of online virtual digital tools and media have been on the rise because of the fact that we cannot go out. So they've got, again, there's both a positive and negative sides to it. So positive side is obviously on, always available, always on, always available. You're not going out, so it means that you're pretty much available all day, and you're actually sitting in front of these digital screens and monitors all the way, whether it is cell phone or tablet, laptop, PC. So that means that you don't have any exercise. That means that you're, ergonomically, you're not trying to optimize your working, and you're not able to utilize the metabolic aspects of your body as much as perhaps the few years before. That's the technology aspect. And then obviously the legal and all the aspects of the laws concerning the usage of privacy, for example, and laws around how you would potentially uh, share your stuff about your online banking, for instance. All of these are changing. About your mobile phone, how mobile phone activities would be. Some of the countries have passed laws to stop or bar some of the apps being used by or being deployed by some other organizations. So for various reasons, security, it could be a security reason, and then that's also to do with the lifestyle changes as well. For example, the lifestyle aspects of how you would deal with how lifestyle have been changing over the last few months in terms of working from home, people getting more and more time, but then they also have got less time to interact with others. There's no face-to-face and physical contacts with people. So again, we're missing something. Again, all of these, and then environmental, ecological aspects of this. In fact, I read an article just this morning about why and how we should try and reduce watching videos on high definition in our mobile phones, for instance. They say that that would consume more power, and that would in effect reduce the battery life. And the more um, the more of the cell phone or the mobile phone technology or mobile technologies or the device that you use in this high consumption mode of the energy, then the more you charge, and the more you charge, the more electricity it's consuming, and it's going to again affect the the carbon emissions and the climate change in that way. Even though digital is obviously reducing footprint compared to the physical, still they say that you can still reduce that. It's in our hands how we do that. And similarly, they're saying that having this change of contracts every 2 years, meaning that we are actually buying new phones, which means that every 2 years, which means that to create that new phone, there's a lot of resources being taken and consumed. So again, that is actually leading to the climate change. Instead of that, what they're suggesting is to prolong your phone usage for, let's say, 4 years or 5 years or whatever, so that you don't really keep upgrading to new phones. Or if you want to buy, better buy a second-hand or used phone, because then that means that you're trying to consume less amount of resources, raw materials to produce that, because the lesser you have the footprint on the on the resources, raw materials, and things like that are used to create this, the better it is for the nature to balance it out. So different
Exactly.
I mean, that's very important, isn't it? Because some of the things which I find obvious, um, some of the things are like, for example, people just used to print left, right, and center. They used to print emails. They used to read emails on the print on the papers. I was like always wondering, why do they do that? Why do they do that? And this was about a good, I'm not talking now, but a good about 10 years ago. Everything that used to send, they used to actually print. Even emails, they used to print and read it. I mean, after some time, there was this campaign that print only if required, and that is attached as a signature. Do not print this unless you require, blah blah blah, whatever. That is good. And after that, now slowly people are have realized, that it is not. It doesn't make sense to print out everything and then waste all the paper, and you're in the process you're using up cartridges, you're using up electricity, you're using up the paper, and then the paper again is not being recycled for some reason, for some, by some of the people. So what's the point of just printing tons and tons of paper and wasting it unnecessarily again? So Anyway, so
Yeah.
all these pestle external drivers we need to really keep a track of, and that's important, and that's why we're just trying to get that point across. So very important for us to understand that. And once we identify the business need, it should be documented in a business plan or a business case, because that would help us understand why we have taken a decision or why we have chosen one option over another. There is a motivation, there is a rationale for that, and that's what we do here. And then we need to quantify the impacts, whether it is adverse or rightful. We need to have kind of measures and metrics to understand or to actually define something, so that we have um, a lot of objectivity putting in this. Not just subjective, oh, I like this, I'll do that, I like blue color, so I'll do that. Instead of that, you actually have got an informed decision, a calculated decision that you've considered after looking at the options, after looking at the potential impacts, after looking at the opportunity costs, and then you have taken this decision, right? So that needs to be communicated clearly. It could be, as we said, it could be potential lost revenue, which is what we call as opportunity cost if we didn't go for that option. Dissatisfied customers, if we went through this option, for example, why would it affect it? What are inefficiencies in the process, in the market? As we just discussed, it could be increasing the costs in a different way. All of these have to be considered, and highlight the expected benefits from any potential solution. So obviously we're talking about costs and benefits, so both tangible as well as intangible, both sides. So when you talk about benefits, again, it should be tangible benefits, things like the return on investment, your significant increase in savings of the costs, or it could be significant increase in cutting down the expenses, or on an intangible level, it could be about simple things like, for example, increased goodwill in the market, better branding, and having a better awareness about your brand. So all of these could be the intangible benefits. So increased revenue, reduced costs, increased market share, examples of that. And then apart from these, there is another third option which we need to consider, that there's also this aspect of doing nothing as an option. So you can go this way, you can implement this option A, you can implement option B, you can implement option C and D and E, whatever. There could be like 100 options, but end of the day, you also should have an option of doing nothing, as in just status quo. If you have got a status quo, that means that you are continuing with what you are doing now. It could be an option. Why to rule out that one? So you should also have that. It's not always that we need to do something new. That's why we actually say that use a technique, what we call as a stop, start, and then keep, start, stop. So start something new, stop something that is you already are working on an existing one which is not helping us, and keep doing things which is you're already doing. So start, stop, and keep. Again, a good technique to consider the options. Problem source, again, understanding the problem, the source of the problem, the challenges. Where is it coming from? Why is it really a problem? Where does the challenge stem from? It's very important to have this kind of pulse on the needs of the business. And then once we do that kind of analysis and understand the business needs, then it is important to actually understand and define the organizational structure, the culture. So that's where we need to actually put together, for example, if there's an impact potentially on the culture of the organization, the work culture, right? For example, if you're looking at how things are working now with all this work from home and the remote working, obviously that means that we're not having that significant office space being consumed. The work culture is more or less like relaxed, flexible, not much of formality. You're able to connect with people quickly, and you can actually reach out to people better when you have got this remote working instead of in the office, because people will be in meetings, they will be away from the desk. You have to leave messages. People are so busy with back-to-back meetings and out of action when it comes to the reaching out to them if you want to have a chat with them. But thankfully, with remote working, you're in one place, you can chat with them, you can actually send a message, and they should be able to respond quicker than if they were potentially in perhaps in a workplace situation. And identify the rationale of the current state and the value delivered by it. Is very important that we need to not only understand ourselves, but we also need to communicate the rationale, the motivation for why things are like this at the moment. So that's where we need to have proper documentation, understand how things have come to the way they are, what kind of things have actually driven them to make sure that that we're in the current state as we are. So very important to have that sense of communication across the stakeholders. And then when we talk about the capabilities versus processes, so products have capabilities and processes have got also capabilities, but then we have got a process approach and a capability approach. So when we try and have a product capability point of view, if you're trying to develop a product, whether it is a digital product or physical product, it could be a mouse, it could be a bottle, or it could be a huge plant that you've erected to create some products. It could be a huge factory. So there are some capabilities involved around the features of the product that you're trying to deliver. And then there are some process-centric view, which is about the efficiencies and the performances of work. And so you need to really be able to identify both of them. It's not as if one is more important than the other. It's about, you need to consider a holistic perspective and then try and look at what are the processes involved, what are the products, what are the kind of operations involved, the technologies, the information, the communication. Look at all of that in a holistic view, understand who are the people involved, what are their roles, how can they contribute, where are the breakdown scenarios, what are the gaps in the features when compared to, for example, previous versions of the products vis-a-vis this version, or when compared with competing products, what are the gaps, what are the missing features. In the same way, in terms of the processes, what are the breakdown scenarios, what are the workarounds, where do people have the waste in the process, where they're waiting a lot of time, where they're trying to produce a lot of products, a lot of outputs which are not really required. They're just lying in the inventory, for example, and just burning the time and the cost to maintain the inventory. All of these need to be looked at from every angle in a holistic way, and then we can come up with a better way to how you can improve those. And obviously the next steps is you can't just stop there. You need to further progress and try and understand the technology, the infrastructure of the organization as a whole. You need to come up with what kind of technologies we're currently using, what kind of infrastructure we have, what kind of preferences we have, what applications are running on. And then we also need to understand the policies and the business rules of the organization. What kind of policies we have, how are they aligned to the overall industry standards? Are they aligned with the government policies? How can we improve the communication of these? How often the business rules are getting updated? Are they aligned to the industry standard regulators, business rules, and not the laws? All of these, again, need to be looked at from a holistic perspective. And then understand the organization business architecture. So you're trying to understand the architecture of where each of these different products, platforms, and the components of the business, the different business units, the entities, the people working in this, their role, the job descriptions, and the tools, the technologies, pretty much everything need to be looked at. We cannot leave things in isolation. We cannot keep looking at things in silos. We need to actually have a holistic perspective, a kind of a comprehensive outlook, a system perspective of each of these, looking at it from the processes, organizational point of view, product point of view, operations aspect of view. And then you've also got the people, the technology, the information, communication, everything need to be looked at. And from there on, we have a better understanding, a better definition of where we are, what is the current state. And then from here, where can we go is another way to look at. And once that is all done, you then understand the external influences, which is what we have identified, right? In terms of the economy, the political aspects, the legal aspects, the environment, the sociological lifestyle aspects, all of those. So that's where you look at the customers, look at competitors, for example, what they've got to say, how the suppliers influencing us, their applications, their technologies could perhaps have an impact or a dependency on how we are operating. For example, their raw materials and their inventory management, their order management, their purchase processes or policies could affect us as well, the tools that they're using. For example, if they're using ERP or some kind of specific technology on their end, then we are also bound to change. We need to be able to integrate with that. Otherwise, we can't put an order to them as to this is how many pieces of equipment we need, or this how many pieces of raw materials we need. So how do they communicate that? Through the software. If our software is dependent on something else, then if they made any changes on their end, then we also need to make sure that the touch points are clear. So we need to also understand what is it that we need to change in our touch point, so that they can again connect back and be able to exchange the information. Political environment, technology, macroeconomic, all of these we discussed in the pestle, right? So it's very, very important we identify all the constraints, the dependencies, and make sure that we have got a better grip on where we are now, and how we can go from here to the next is basically defined in the next set of sessions.